So we are going to get started with our UMass Ready, Set, Apply session. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Suhaila Booker. I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admissions here at UMass Amherst. And the Ready, Set, Apply program is something that is supposed to support our students in whatever stage of the application process they're in. So some of this may be relevant to you, some of it may not be relevant to you. All of it, I think, will give you some insight into how we read applications and what we're looking for and ways to really make your application stand out. So even if you've already submitted for the early action deadline of November 5th, if you want to add some things or change some things based on the information we provide, this can be very helpful for you. I do want to mention that we do have two of our students sitting in the front row, so when we do our Q&A session, if you have any questions specific to students who have applied to and been accepted to UMass Amherst, they're here to answer questions for you at the end, and I'll take questions throughout and at the end as well. All right, so the agenda for today, we did our welcome. We're going to go over filling out the Common App, watch the clock, navigating the admissions process, empowering your voice, writing your best college essay, and then I'm going to give you ways to stay connected with us. Now, I mentioned before, a few minutes ago, that there are handouts in the back of the room with our students, so if you haven't gotten them yet for our students in the room specifically, I definitely encourage you to grab those handouts so that you can follow along with me and take them home with you as you go through the application process and filling out the Common App, writing your essay. And then there is an additional handout called Show Me the Money, which talks a little bit about financial aid, but we do have separate financial aid sessions going on throughout the day in the room just over there. Okay. Now, how to fill out the Common Application. So again, many of you are going to be at different stages of this. Some of you may have already filled out the Common Application, some of you may not have started. So this is the handout, how to fill out the Common Application, so if you want to go along, you can. So we're going to start at the beginning. Have you started the Common App? That's the question to ask yourself. Have you started it? That's the way that you're going to apply, not just to UMass Amherst, but probably most of the schools that you apply to are going to be on the Common App. So that's the way that you're going to begin. There are 3 different answers to that: yes, no. Thinking about it, maybe you're not thinking about filling out the Common Application at all, but now hopefully you are if you haven't been, because we want to make sure that you get that in and get all of your materials submitted on the Common App. So if yes, then you have a head start. If no, then you follow steps 1 through 4 on your handout. They tell you exactly how to get into the Common Application and begin adding schools, starting with the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And if you're thinking about it, the point of this session is to help you feel more confident about filling out the Common App. So some of you might be feeling a little bit wary about it. We want to make sure that you are feeling confident about it after this workshop. So when you're filling out the Common App, there are a few things that I want you to keep in mind, some takeaways that I want you to think about when you're thinking about filling it out. Taking your time when completing the Common Application. All of the answers that you give, all of the information that you put in, they're probably answers that you already know, information that you already know. There are going to be things specific to the schools that you're applying to, so you want to take your time. You don't want to rush through it. It's not a race. Just get it filled out as soon as possible. Our early action deadline is November 5th, and so other schools are probably either past their early action deadlines or they're coming up, so you do still have a little bit of time, but still take your time as you're filling out that Common Application, because you want to make sure that you get all of the information correct. Ask your parent/guardian, school counselor, or a UMass admissions counselor for help. So this is what I'm here for. I'm here to support you through this application process. And so if you have questions, if you're not sure about something, just ask for help. We're here to help you with all of that, and chances are that we've come across tons and tons and tons of applications, so we have the background, the expertise, and we'll probably have the answers to the questions that you're asking. Triple check your application for typos and incorrect information. I think that, it happens a lot that sometimes people aren't thinking about what they're putting down. For example, one of the things that we see in the application process is some of the answers to our required questions. So for example, the why do you want to attend UMass Amherst question. I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone write, I really want to go to the University of New Hampshire because it's a beautiful school and I think I'm going to love it there. And I'm like, that's all probably true. But we're not that school, so if you're copying and pasting answers, you don't have to know, as long as you're triple checking all of the information And then be authentic. The point of this whole process is to find a place that's right for you. At the end of the day, you're going to end up at the place that is your school, your place, whatever is the right option for you. So just be yourself, and you're going to end up at the place that you need to be, and we'll help you figure out exactly what those options are. All right, so watching the clock, navigating the admissions process. So there are, first of all, the handout that you're going to have, follow along through that handout is what's called Watch the Clock. It says that on the side. Now, there are a few different things that you want to keep in mind as you're navigating the admissions process. And this is going to be for pretty much all schools because we all have the same kind of admission timeline, the same admission process. So as you're thinking about not just UMass Amherst, but other schools that you're applying to, these are the things that you'll want to keep in mind. So starting the research and digging deep. It's very easy to just like go to the computer and Google, like, does UMass Amherst have a psychology major? Does UMass Amherst offer tours? What is, can first year students live on campus? All of the answers to those questions are all yes, but you want to do the research about the majors that you're interested in, the things that you want to do, whether or not you're going to enjoy the food on campus, if you're going to enjoy the living spaces, if you're going to enjoy the people. All of that stuff is going to be something that you're going to want to go through as you're figuring out what colleges you're applying to and which ones you want to attend. So making a list. How many students have your counselors told you to make a list? Anybody in this room, has your counselor told you to do that? Yeah, it's okay, let me know. I think many counselors ask you to do that. And so they're not just giving you extra work, it actually is a very helpful thing to do to make a list. So if you get like an Excel spreadsheet, you have different categories at the top, the names of the schools that you're applying to. Do they have your preferred major? Do they have an option for you to be undecided or to explore? Do they have an option for you to live on campus? What are the options for living on campus? Is this the right fit for me in terms of the student body? Do they have extracurricular activities that I like? All of these questions you can ask yourself and then plug in that information as you're doing the research. It'll make it a lot easier for you to sort all of your information as you're figuring out which schools you want to go to. And I know like it might seem like your counselors are just trying to give you more work, but it is actually a very helpful tip. Stay organized. So part of the reason that you want to make that list is to help yourself stay organized and make sure that you have all of the right information about all of your schools. Explore the campus. Now, all of you are doing that today, so you're already a step in the right direction. I can't stress enough how important this part of the process is. If you're able to visit the schools that you're applying to, you should visit the schools that you're applying to. You don't want the first time that you encounter your school to be when you're walking onto the campus for the first semester and then get there and find out that you don't like it at all. So exploring the campuses, seeing the dorms, eating the food, make sure you eat our #1 dining today at some point. It will give you a sense of whether or not you actually can see yourself at the university. Contact your admissions counselor. So we have all kinds of contact information. You'll have specific admissions counselors based on where it is you're coming from, but reach out to us if you have questions, and we're happy to help you through anything that you need. So is there anybody here who is maybe not sure what they want to major in, or is like still thinking about it, or has a lot of different ideas of what they want to major in, and maybe you're not exactly sure what you want to do? Okay, great. So that's an important thing to figure out as well, if there are options for you to explore. It's okay if you don't know what you want to do. I think that some people feel a lot of pressure to know exactly what it is they want to do, but you're like 15, 17, 18 years old. It's okay if you're still trying to decide, and seeing which colleges give you the option to explore and figure it out as you go along is really important. Then you'll want to see if it's going to take longer for you to explore. At UMass, we have options for you through our exploratory tracks where you get to sort of be undecided in a certain field, but we still make sure that you're going to graduate in 4 years, so you're not spending extra time here because you're exploring. It's totally okay to not know exactly what you want to do. So key takeaways for the admissions process, how you're navigating the admissions process. Manage your time so you aren't overwhelmed. I can admit that I am one of those people who waits until the very last minute to do something, and then I like bang it all out just like in one sitting, and I procrastinate. I'm a procrastinator. Is anybody else a procrastinator? Yeah, right? We're procrastinating. It's okay. It's fine. It's a common trait. It's totally okay. So if you are, that's fine, but trying your best to manage your time time well is important, because this can be an overwhelming process, and you only ever really go through it once. So once you're through it, you're done. But try to manage your time. It'll also set you up well for managing your time when you're in college. It's going to be super important. So if you're a procrastinator, you use these tips and tricks like making a list, staying organized, all of that to help you with the procrastination piece of your personality, okay? Identify your passions and a relevant academic interest. So I think that this is a good place to start, because if you're not entirely sure what you want to do, you can start by saying, what am I passionate about? What is something that I really enjoy? Is there a subject that I really enjoyed in school? Is there something that I've done outside of school that has really resonated with me that might translate to an academic interest? So starting there, when you're thinking about what major you want to apply into, is totally fine. Now, for UMass Amherst in particular, we don't hold you to a specific major. We are going to welcome you to change that major. I know students who changed their majors like 5, 6, 7 times. They still graduated in 4 years, but I overall wouldn't recommend doing that. But we do have things in place for you to be able to change your major. So just starting with what do I enjoy doing, what am I interested in, what am I good at, is a very good place to begin if you're unsure. And then of course we do have the exploratory tracks for students who are really like thinking about exploring within a certain area. Determine your preferred campus location. So this is really important, like obviously the academics, what you're doing in school, what you're doing in the classroom, that's going to be very relevant and one of the most important pieces when you're deciding which school you want to go to. But figuring out where you want to live is very important as well. So there are some people who love the change of seasons, who really like to be able to see the fall and the spring and the winter and the summer and see all of those seasons change. And there are some people who just want it to be super warm all the time. There are some people who want it to be super cold all the time. I'm always surprised by the people who come here from like Texas, and they're like excited to come to an area like Western Massachusetts and New England. They ask me like, what should I bring? I'm coming from Texas, and I can say bring all your socks, buy more socks, have all the socks. But you want to figure out, like, is that something that you want to do? Is that going to be an environment you're comfortable in? Is that an environment I can be productive in? Because it might not be, depending on who you are. So identifying your preferred campus location is definitely something that's going to be important as you go through this process. Making sure the price is right. That's a huge part of this. So obviously you want to be able to go to the school of your choice, but it's very important for you to do the research about your finances. Everybody, I know finances can be a touchy subject and everybody has a different experience with it, and it's very individual and very specific. So working with the financial aid offices that you're going to for the schools that you're applying to, you'll want to ask the questions about finances so that you can make sure that the price is right for you and your family. Trust the process and yourself. Again, this goes along with you being authentic. Like if you are your true self, if you express the things that you need, the things that you want, you'll end up in the place that's right for you and with folks who are going to support you in getting through your time at college. So just trust the process, trust yourself, and ask as many questions as possible. Now, empowering your voice, writing your best college essay. So this is going to be very relevant for some people. This is going to be irrelevant for some other people, because depending on what stage you're at, you may have already finished your personal essay. You may be just starting your personal essay. You may be in like the draft mode where you're editing. But I think that this information is going to be helpful because it's going to give you some insight into as to what we are looking for when we read your essay, what role the essay plays in the application process as you're reading your application. So first of all, the handout is empowering your voice. Now, there are several different Common App writing prompts, so I'm going to have them all out here for you. And so I think there's like 7 of them. So all of them sort of tie back to you, but I'm just going to read through them. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So an individual piece of who you are that maybe sets you apart from your peers, that your application would suffer if we didn't know that information. Let us know more about that part of that story and who you are. The lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? I think this is super important because these are the kinds of questions that they're going to ask you in job interviews. How did you handle something when things didn't go your way? We want to know how you deal with challenging situations, how you get yourself out of problems, because that's going to happen in your life. So tell us about a time when that happened to you and how you dealt with it. And it will set you up very well for also going to job interviews because that's a very common question. Reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? I think this is super beneficial for the time that you all are at in your lives when you're in high school. Maybe you had a certain belief or influence that was really significant to you growing up, and you're now starting to maybe question that belief or question that idea or challenge it or see it in a different light. And so you're in this unique place where things are changing for you. You're going out on your own, you're becoming an adult. So how did that change you? What has that done for you? What changed your thinking, and how are you approaching life more differently now as a result? Reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? So I think that it's really important. Other people in our lives, the influence that they have in our lives is very significant. But I think it's important to remember that you need to talk about how that person has affected you or how that situation has affected you. I think what we hear a lot in personal essays is someone will go on talking about a person or a situation and they forget to sort of tie it back to themselves. The point of the personal essay is for us to learn something about you. So make sure that after reading it, there's some new information that we're not getting from your application that we've learned. Discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. And so this is very similar to reflecting on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea, but really thinking about how a specific situation or event or something changed you. Again, make sure that you're focusing not too much on that situation, but more so on who you are as a result. Describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? Now, this can be something that you're really passionate about. Maybe when we're reading your application, we see your extracurricular activities. That's one of the important things for us. If you say, I'm part of the National Honor Society, but maybe that's really, really important for you. A lot of people are part of the National Honor Society. We see it a lot on applications. But maybe there's a part of that program and part of that club, something that you do that's really significant to you. So talk more about it. Expand upon what you've already put in your application. Tell us a little bit more about it and tell us why you're passionate about it. Share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. Now this, I like to say, this is a question it's a very vague question. It's basically just write about anything. So the opportunities for you to share more about yourself, they're very broad. You have all of these essay prompts, and again, the point of us reading this essay, what we want from this essay is to have learned more about you. Now, we're not going to go through these exercises, but they are exercises that are on the sheets, the handouts that I gave you, so these are just ways to begin writing your best college essay. Or if you've already written it, thinking about these ideas and thinking about what should be in your essay is definitely going to help you if you're in this sort of editing stage. So take 2 minutes to write a list of words or phrases you would use to describe yourselves. Don't be shy. Take a look at your list and select 1 to 3 words you would like to expand on. For example, if you say you're really social and like to meet new people, tell us more about that. What opportunities does that present? Does it expand your social network, which may lead to a co-op, internship, job, etc.? How does being social impact your life? So this is just a way for you to either begin writing your college essay or think about what you want to add to your college essay. If there's not something like this in there already, think about how you want to add this. So start with those couple of words, or start with those few words, and talk about how those words sort of make you who you are, how they impact who you are, how they've provided opportunities for you. This is a very good way for you to start. Another exercise, take 2 minutes to look around and find an object or image in your home that has significance to you. a childhood toy, a photo of a loved one, a piece of jewelry, a trophy, a favorite item of clothing. You can also take a moment to think about something that's significant to you, discuss that item and why it's special to you. So maybe there's something in your house that has meant a great deal to your family and you want to talk about why it means a great deal to your family, the history that it has, and what it means for you as a part of that family, as the new generation of this family now. And you can talk about the significance of just that one item. If you take time, look around your house and see maybe, I'm sure many of you have that item in your house that has a great deal of significance to you and your loved ones. And finally, writing prompt exercise number 3, select 2 of the 5 phrases below and complete each phrase about you personally. Be creative and honest. So if you really knew me, you'd know. Again, we want to learn more about you after reading the application. So if there's something that we would never know about you if we're just going through your application, you can expand on what that thing is. If I had an unlimited amount of money, my ultimate dream would be, so for me, it would be to open a bakery because I love baked goods, all baked goods, and if I could just do that on the side, that would be super awesome for me. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you had an unlimited amount of money, there's something that you want to do, absolutely expand on that and tell us why you do that. What would the title of your biography be and why? So if you are the kind of person who, you know, I could never write a biography about myself, there's no way, I don't think people will be super interested in my life, but maybe you're thinking about like who you are as a person and things that are really significant to you. So what would the overall title of your biography be? What would people want to know about you after reading your biography? If you could have an unlimited supply of anything, what would it be and why? And so this could be like food-wise, this could be like maybe certain kinds of objects, this could be really anything that you could think of. If there's something that you love, absolutely love, can't live without, tell us more about what that thing is. And if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? Or if you could be any superhero, why would you be that superhero and why? And so I think that's probably one of the more common questions that you hear in a lot of other like essay writing environments. If you could be a superhero or have a superpower, what would it be and why? But tell us more about that, what it would mean to you to have a superpower or be a superhero, what that means to you, how it would affect your life. So these are writing prompts, like I said, they're all on the handouts that we gave you. So if you want to take them home and think about sort of how you would be affected, or rather how your essay would change, how your essay would be affected by these kind of writing prompts, and if you're thinking about starting or adding something to your essay, this is a really, really good way to sort of think about the things that you want to tell the colleges that you're applying to. Because nearly every college is going to require your personal essay. So what do you want to tell them about yourself that they wouldn't know just by looking at your application? So, key takeaways. Now, for writing your essay, proofread your materials before submitting your application. When we're reading your personal essay, we're not just looking for who you are. That's the biggest part of it. We want to know about who you are. But we also want to just see your abilities to sort of write a basic essay. So for example, I've had students who have written like the 650 words that you're supposed to write for the personal essay, and then they add a link that has the rest of like the 50 pages of the essay that they decided to write. I'm like, okay, that's fantastic, but maybe don't write a thesis. And then I've had students write 3 sentences telling me, I want to go to college, I can't wait to go to college, college is going to be so much fun, and that's their essay. And so obviously that demonstrates one's ability to write sentences and their eagerness for college, but we want to see your ability for writing just like a basic essay. And we want to learn more about you after having read that essay. So think about that when you're, submitting your application, proofread it, have other people go over it, ask other people like, what did you learn about me after reading this essay, but just make sure you look over it before submitting it. Pick the writing prompts that you connect with the most. So we just read through all 7 of the writing prompts, and the final one is a very vague, like pretty much write any essay that you want to, but find the one that you connect with the most. You might read the essay prompts, you might have heard me read them out loud just now and said, ooh, I can think of the exact situation that would be good for answering this question, or the exact object in my house that would be good for answering this question, or any of those. So think about, which of those questions you resonate with the most. So empowering your voice and telling your story, that's the most important thing. We want to hear your story, we want to know more about you, making sure that your voice is coming out in that. And it's really the only the only real place that your voice comes out significantly in the application. So we see, your grades, you get your letters of recommendation from your teachers. We do have some of those answers to UMass specific questions, but they're short answers. So this is where your voice really comes out. So making sure that you empower your voice and share your story is an important piece of this. So that's everything for my presentation. I want to take questions and answers now. As I mentioned, we do 2 students in the front, so if you have questions about specifically being a student who's applied to and been accepted to UMass Amherst, you can ask that of them. But I'd like to open the floor for any questions anyone has about the application process, about the filling out the Common App, about the essay, about the admissions process at all. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
How many are behind you?
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, we have a very large team of readers. So we have folks who come back and they read for us even though they're not working in our office. There are folks who often have been affiliated with the university in some capacity before, folks who have worked in our office before, and so they come back and they just read for us. So we make sure that the load is divided up as evenly as possible. And UMass Amherst also reads by major. So for example, for me, like I've read for the computer science program and the engineering program and the nursing program, and so we read by major and that's how we'll divide it up. But we do make sure that we divide it up evenly enough and that we have people read enough applications to be able to do the holistic review that we talk about, to be able to look at the student as a whole person as opposed to a number and making sure that we're reviewing all pieces of the application. More questions? Yes? Yeah, so that's a great question. So I would say there isn't really a benefit to applying except for applying for early action or regular decision. So if a student applies after the November 5th deadline, that means that they're applying for regular decision. And it doesn't really matter when they apply, we're just gonna read them as we get them. And we have different ways that we sort them. Some people choose to read by the GPA, some people choose to read it's not, it's just like we all read in our own different ways, but it.
So if you are reading and trying to accepting all at once, so if someone's not applying until a week before.
Yes.
You're already full.
No, and that's not necessarily, we leave a certain amount of room, we have a certain amount of room for students that we're accepting, and then that's also why we have our wait list process. So if there are too many students in a certain program, that we would put them on a wait list, but really that's only going to apply for more of our competitive majors. So for nursing, computer science, business, engineering, if a student is applying, let's say they want to apply as a regular decision student and they don't apply until March 20th, which is very soon to when we'd be releasing, there may not be room in those programs for them even if they are academically qualified because they submitted their application so late. So I would say students who are interested in the competitive program should apply early action by November 5th, and anything, we start reading on November 5th or after November 5th. On November 6th, we start reading because we give students until November 5th at 11:59 p.m. to submit any material if they want to submit. So after that, we only will take what you have in there by November 5th. But I would say a student should try to get things in as close to the deadline as possible, and we do try to make sure we have enough space, as much space as possible, but for the competitive program, sometimes it's just not feasible.
And if you apply regular decision, you look at first semester senior.
Yeah, so that's a good point. The question was, if you apply regular decision, do we look at first semester senior year grades? And so typically, yes, we would see first semester senior year grades. Some people ask, what's the benefit of applying early action versus regular decision? I always say that if a student can apply early action, that they should apply early action. So if they're feeling comfortable with their grades, if they feel like, they're good and they want to get their stuff in early, then they should just go ahead and apply early action because it means they have more time to make their decision. They still have until May 1st. But if a student wants us to see those first semester senior year your grades, then they should wait to apply regular decision, because some people get in their first semester senior year grades at the end of November, end of December or something, but there's no guarantee that we're gonna review those grades, because if they're not in by the November 5th deadline, then, we were reading 50,000 applications, so we could be reading them at any time. Yes, in the back.
If a student is very undecided for a major, do they still have to apply to one of the specific colleges, and how easy is it to switch?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, if the student is really undecided, if they have to apply, still apply into one of the schools and colleges, and how easy it is to switch. So UMass does require that students apply into a school or college. Now they could do that if they're undecided through our exploratory tracks. And so our exploratory tracks, as opposed to one large undecided major, are tracks in our schools and colleges for students to be able to explore. So for example, if a student is like, I love the sciences, it's my thing, I'm pretty sure that that's the field I'm going to go into, they could be on the exploratory track within the College of Natural Sciences. We do have an exploratory track, the interdisciplinary exploratory track, which is very much for students who are like, I really like sciences, but I really like humanities and fine arts, and I like social and behavioral sciences. I like all of it. I'm really not sure which one I want to pursue. I would say if there's a main interest that a student has, and they think that they want to explore within that school and college, they should be on that exploratory track. But if they really are thinking of 3 or 4 totally, completely different areas of study, then our exploratory track and the interdisciplinary studies is a good way to go. Yes, Hi.
I'm wondering if there's any really common errors that would turn the admission to the state off. Can you tell us some examples of that?
Yeah, and the question is if there are any common errors that would turn us off as we're reading the application. Now, I would say that the biggest thing that we see is that when students are putting that different name of the different college when they're answering why do you want to come to our school. And that's because pretty much every school is going to ask you why you want to come to their school. That's a very common question. And so people are often copying and pasting the answers, and so they're forgetting to change up the names. So that's the most common thing, and we're not going to deny a student because they made that mistake, but it is a little bit annoying for us, I would say. We don't love to see it. And so that's one of the things that's I would say a little bit of a turnoff, but again, is not going to make or break anybody's decision. We're not going to deny a student because they put a different name of a different school. I think that one of the things that for me has been a turnoff as a reader, and this is very rare, but getting a letter of recommendation that is negative. Most of the time if someone would write a negative letter of recommendation, they would just not write the letter of recommendation. But there is every once in a while a teacher who's like, yeah, the student just wasn't great. So students being mindful of the teachers that they're asking to write letters of recommendation is super important. And even without that negative aspect, thinking about some teachers are writing letters of recommendation for pretty much every single student. Some teachers, all students are asking that. So maybe it's best not to ask the teacher who's writing all of those letters of recommendation. Maybe it's best to ask somebody who has a little bit more time and isn't overwhelmed by writing them. So that's something that, again, isn't going to make or break an application, but maybe a student wants to think about as they're asking for recommenders. I think that another thing I would say, maybe to avoid, again, nothing is going to make or break our decision that would ever, unless the student's transcript is all F, they're failing all of our classes, there's nothing that's going to necessarily make or break our decision because we review holistically. But a final thing that I would say that we see in the application is just students not really looking over what they're submitting in their application and just submitting wrong things to other colleges, and those are little mistakes. Like I said, everybody makes little mistakes. It's not that big of a deal. So that's why we give students all of these tips, looking over their application, making sure that they're staying organized, keeping everything together, and writing all the things to the right universities. Yes.
The reviewers of the essay, they're rubrics that you're filling out, when you're reviewing the essay?
the question was, when we're reviewing the essay, is there some kind of rubric that we're using as we're going through the essay? And so the answer is no. We're just, like I said, looking to see that students have shared something about themselves with us, and that they can basically like just write a basic essay. And so for most students, that's the case. Like for most students, they can do that because it's what they've been doing in high school. But there are times, like I said, when we see students who maybe didn't put very much effort into their essays. There are students who, this does not happen often, but maybe are plagiarizing their essays. Like I said, that's very rare, that doesn't happen. And so, we're just like looking for students' basic abilities to write an essay and then learn more about who they are. Yes, in the front here and then over there.
Do you have a way of screening for the use of artificial intelligence tools in essay writing? What's your approach to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was whether or not we have a process for screening students using artificial intelligence to write their essay. And so the answer is we don't have like a specific process. But again, there's not going to be, the essay isn't going to make or break the student's application. So if a student is, we obviously want this essay to come from you, and you wouldn't want to risk that we find out that you've used AI to write your essay. But if a student's not going to get in just based on their essay, and they're not going to get denied just on their essay. It's going to be all of the things that help us decide. But we are, trusting our students not to be using artificial intelligence or plagiarizing essays in any way when they're submitting them to us. Yes, in the back, in the red sweater, and then right in front of me.
I realize you are test optional, but there are SATs on November 4th, and your early action is November 5th.
Yeah.
Can you explain, can someone go early action but still submit their November 4th, or do the test scores have to be also be before November 5th?
So they can submit their scores if they'd like to, but it might take a couple weeks for us to receive them if they decide to submit them by that, like after they get those scores. So there's a chance that they won't be reviewed. We tell if a student feels like they did very well on that test and they want to wait and submit their application, I always think it's a good idea to put your best foot forward academically. Like that's always the best choice. So if you feel very confident about that test score and you think that it's going to significantly support your application and your chances of being admitted, then waiting to apply regular decision would be the best choice. There's a chance that we'll get those scores before the actual person reviews those scores, but we can't hold off on reading them to wait for those scores to come in.
So if you go early action and your scores don't come in, you'd still be considered early action.
Yeah.
Just disregard your scores if they come in later.
Yeah. So we might review that. They might come in before we get to the application. They just might not. Yes.
Actually, also about SATs. So if you're test optional, but your test score maybe, I don't know, just from a quick Google search, it looked like it was in the realm of 1,300 for like the middle 50%. If you're under that, would you say it's better to not submit it if your transcript is strong, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the question is whether or not, looked like our mid-range, like our average SAT score was about like a 1,300, and whether or not you should submit your score if it's below a 1,300, your SAT score. So first of all, I want to stress that because we are test optional, the average SAT score went up a lot because most people weren't submitting scores. Most people that we admitted to competitive majors, to our Commonwealth Honors College, to really everything, did not submit test scores, the majority of people. So we're taking that average from folks who did submit their test scores, which are going to be higher because they're only submitting it if they're higher. So I just want to let you know that that average SAT score is just from what people are submitting. Now, if you have below a 1,300, I think that it's good to sort of get some advice about whether or not it's a good idea to submit test scores. Below 1,300 is fine because 1,300 is like the middle. But we have plenty of students who have much lower SAT scores that we've admitted to the university. Maybe if you have like a 200 SAT out of 1,600, maybe don't submit it. But there's also like a lot of room for interpretation. If a student is getting straight A's in high school but did poorly on their SATs, we're going to take everything into consideration, but probably make the assumption that they could function in our academic environment because they're doing very well in high school. So like all of it's gonna be holistic and it's okay to submit your scores, but getting advice from admissions counselors like myself or guidance counselors at high school is definitely a good way to begin before you decide to submit test scores. Any more questions? Yes?
What was the most memorable college essay that you read?
Oh, that's a very good question. And the question was, what is the most memorable college essay that I've read? I've read a lot of them. And I would say that for me, I think it's different for all of us because there are certain things that stand out to us as readers because of who we are, right? Like there are certain things that are going to make a difference for us that are going to mean more to us because of who we are. Now, first I want to let you know that we do go through a training, a bias training, so that we're not like, oh, I love the thing this person does, so I'm admitting that. Like we don't just do that. But for me, I have a twin sister and she's like my best friend and I love her to death. And so when I read essays about the closeness of twin sisters, that has always stood out for me because I love my sister and that's like, you know, a super important thing for me. So for me, it was an essay about a twin sisters who tried to do the like switch thing in their classes and it didn't work. And I just thought that it was really funny and it stood out to me because my sister and I would have loved to have been able to do that, but we don't look that much alike. So I think for all of us it's different, but we do make sure, like, for us it's like we love reading those little things about all of the students who apply, like those fun things that they do or those interesting facts about them. Yes?
Where on the application do you find this questions that are specific to the college?
Yeah.
You submit?
Yeah, so it will be, not after you submit, so it'll be part of the common application. There are different, and sorry, the question was where do you find the UMass specific questions, the questions that are specific to UMass Amherst. And so I believe there's a section in the Common App that says questions, and that's where it is. But it's like around, they'll ask you like for your family information, they'll ask you for like your essay or any writing prompt. So it's either in the writing prompt section or the question section. But in the areas where you have to write, it'll indicate, like you'll go down and it will let you know, like, here are the questions to answer for UMass Amherst, and it won't let you submit the application until you fill it out. Anything else? We have a few more minutes. Any other questions about the application process in general, about the common application, about writing your essay, anything at all? All right, go once, twice, and we're done. Thank you all so much for having me. If you have any questions, I'm going to hang out up here.